Hello and welcome to Letters Home, a story of a World War II B-17 pilot from Lowell, Michigan, in his own words, and he just so happens to be my grandpa. I'm your host, Annie Whitlock, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, my dad, Mitch McMahon, my aunt, Lori McMahon Summerfield, and Dale Croft from the Lowell Historical Museum.
In each episode of Letters Home, we're going to dive into letters written by my dad during his time in World War II that he sent to his parents, his siblings, and friends back home in Lowell, Michigan. We'll be reading his own words and giving some context as to what was happening in the world and in Lowell at the time he wrote these.
In this episode, we read a lengthy letter published in the Lowell Ledger where Dad describes a hypothetical mission written like a novel. We also get an update on his front teeth and our mysterious rebus puzzle.
Yep, gotta get a rebus update. All right, well, we're going to kick things off today with a letter written on May 2nd, 1944, which we know is Bruce's birthday. This year, 2025, Bruce would have been 110.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
In 1944, though, he was celebrating his 29th birthday. So, in his own words.
May 2nd, 1944. Dear Mother and Dad, just 29 years ago, you were holding another son. Of course, I don't remember it very well, but I was the main attraction. Does it seem that long ago to you? I didn't think so. Neither does it seem that I've been around that long. I received your cable today, and I sure hope we can be together on my next one. Just let this war finish, and my roaming days are over. It's okay to gallivant around for a few years, but a fellow's got to settle down before he starts being of any good use. Like you asked, Mother, I picked some wildflowers, and they'll have to do it for this birthday. Incidentally, I sent you some flowers about 6 weeks before Easter. Did you receive them? Everyone is getting the invasion jitters on this island. The only ones who aren't excited are we combat men. Fighting is an old story to us, and the invasion only means we're closer to the end. But for the paratrooper and the airborne infantry, it's really a tedious job waiting. The enemy across the channel is also showing signs of jitters, and do you blame him? For the masses of troops over here, I hope it comes before long. Waiting isn't so good after a time. Well, I guess it's good night now, and God bless you, your loving son, Bruce. P.S. I picked these flowers just outside my door. The blue ones are bluebells. The yellow ones, I don't know.
He actually did include wildflowers in the letter, apparently, because from reading other letters, that's what he said, but we obviously still don't have those.
Oh, okay. Well,
They didn't survive?
They did not survive 80 years in Aunt Lori's basement.
but I was curious. I thought, okay,
Yeah, I think he did. He picked them and put them in the envelope.
Oh,
I mean,
that's
I don't know
cool.
if they made it really what good shape they were in by the time they got back to Lowell, but
that's right. Yeah.
in 1944. But I just thought that was cute.
That
Some
is
wildflowers.
cool.
Put them in the
Yeah.
envelope. All right. Well, let's keep going with another letter that updates the family on an upcoming leave, but not one that he's going to go back home for, in his own words.
May 9th, 1944. Dear Mom and Dad, this is the doggonest pen I ever saw. But like all good things, it's temperamental. Sometimes writing beautifully, usually when I don't have much to say, and acting up when I'm loaded with the news. So I suppose that makes me loaded with news tonight. Well, I am, but as usual, there's that censor licking his chops in the background. To keep you up to date on my uppers, they're just fine. Except for words like s and fs. I do all right with my vacated upper gums. Now that they are all healed up, I'm glad the doc smoothed the bone down. My gums are nice and smooth, and I ought to get a good fit. My fitting will take place next week, and then approximately 4 weeks later, I'll have teeth. After I get me new teeth, I plan to take a week or 10 days rest in Scotland. The work is interesting here, and it's interesting to see the results of our bombing. Even a couple of days away from here, and I'm in a hurry to get back and see what happened. But when I go up to Scotland, I'll just forget it all for a while. I'll probably take that leave late in June or the 1st of July. Loch Lomond would be nice this time of year. Last night I sent another letter to Jeff. I want you to send me your honest opinion of those letters, just how they sound back home. It's quite possible that over here in the heat of things, I might write something that would be misunderstood back home where you're removed from it all. I sort of get a kick out of writing them, but I never could write about the ghastly side of this business. It would seem like desecrating the memories of a lot of swell fellows to write of their misfortunes. However, one nice thing about it over here is that so many of the fellows make terra firma okay. Wish you could see the list of PWs. You feel better about things. And this is not a military secret because your papers tell you it every day. I'm sending a couple of cartoons to you. Maybe you'll get the laugh I did out of them. Good night for now. God be with you. Your loving son, Bruce.
Well, we're here. We will read this letter to Jeff, Harold Jeffries, if you remember, in a little bit. But yeah, Bruce really did love Scotland, wanting to go back. He just really enjoyed it there. But I don't think he ends up going back to Scotland, because right around the end of June is when he heads back home to the U.S. So the end of June 1944. So he doesn't stay much longer past D-Day, and we're getting up to the point of, maybe his last few weeks over in England in this. So, yeah. So I don't know. I don't think he goes back. Of course, I'm not sure. I gotta maybe there was a 10-day gap or something in there where he goes to Scotland. But well, now it's time to get into our segment. Speaking of D-Day, what's coming up, where we talk about what was going on in the world and in Lowell in May of 1944. We're going to read a letter that mentions several Lowell people. So we'll see if any of you know them. In his own words.
May 10th, 1944. Dear Mom and Dad, this afternoon I received the letter you wrote on May 1st. And so I'll answer it directly before I go to bed. You better keep those choppers in, Mother. The doctor told me that after one day of keeping them in, you'll forget you have them. It's only when you continuously take them out that you have trouble. Anyway, I bet you look like a million in them. I haven't received the picture from Bern yet. Incidentally, from your letter, you must be keeping busy with all the clubs that you're entertaining. That's the best way to stay young. And it's young I want you when I get back. Also, my apologies for not knowing who made the divinity. Might have known that texture was none other than yours. So you drove out to Smyrna to see the Insleys, Dad. Remember the time you and I went to that play in the Smyrna Hall and laughed all the way through it at the acting? Also remember the night I played out there and got sick from eating half-cooked pork sandwiches and pop? I saw the Inslee boy the other day and talked with him again for quite a while. He is a gunner in the squadron on the field and is getting along fine. In another squadron on the field. I bet Mert is sure happy these days. I'm sure you would worry more about me if I were in a submarine. Those fellows really have a rough job and don't get much credit for it. Then, too, when they get a missing in action, it's such a hopeless thing. I'm so very sorry for Bill Clark. That poor guy must be suffering a terrible lot. The reason I wrote was to see if I could cheer him up any. I don't think I realize just how bad he is. We think we have it tough because we are separated, but really how very lucky we are. So, C.H. Runciman is now advertised in Russia. My. I didn't know Russians took long enough to eat. The papers today said that they now have all the Crimea and should start things humming on this front, if they're ever going to. I'll bet that Detmer boy, that is missing, is Paul Detmer, Sam's boy. He was quite younger than I am, but I knew him from reading the meter out there. As I remember him, he was a tall, blonde-haired kid with a nice smile. Veda, I think, will remember him because we talked to him a long time one day on the route. So Bob Stewart is over here. If he is in the Air Corps, I can probably get in touch with him because I can get to any field around here with my fort. If he's in the ground force, it'll be harder to see him because it wouldn't be near any field. In regards to Wings, I'm afraid he has left me. Quite a while ago, he turned up missing. Probably as soon as the weather was decent, he took off. There are so many mice and rats in this country, I'll bet he's doing okay. Well, I'm at the end of the paper, so good night, and God bless you. Your loving son, Bruce.
Oh, we found out that Lotta is the one with false teeth also, because he's comparing,
Yeah.
saying don't take them out.
Yeah, didn't know that.
Just leave them in and get used to them.
Yeah, apparently she's got new ones too, so they are comparing. Well, there's a lot of names in this letter. Do you recognize any of them?
C.H. Runciman.
Of course. We know who C.H. Runciman is, although that part about him advertising in Russia was really confusing. The Russians take too long to eat. I read that and reread that, and I don't know. I hope I'm getting that right. It doesn't make sense. I'm like, what would he be advertising in Russia? I don't know. That part was confusing.
What did he do for a living?
Fish beans and beans.
Oh, well, then that's
It was one of them.
Oh.
so
Depends-
so there
depends
must
on
be
the-
advertising
yeah,
for.
Oh,
his
okay.
beans.
That must be the eating reference,
Yeah.
maybe. Okay. We've talked about the Insleys in a previous letter when I think last week even, when he discovered he was close to somebody from back home. We mentioned C.H. Runciman. I did happen to see Bill Clark in the Ledger when I was looking for other things, and unfortunately it was his obituary. He was a 27-year-old that died after an illness, which must have been what Bruce was talking about in his letter.
Oh,
He
yeah,
was sick
sad.
for a while, yeah. So that leaves Paul Detmer, Bob Stewart, and someone named Mert. Do you know these names?
There were Detmers out in Alto, but I didn't know him well.
Mert, I have no idea.
Well, Bob's.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Paul Detmer, I recognize the
Yeah,
name.
the
but-
name. Yeah.
Okay.
And Bob Stewart was the dad of one of my classmates,
Oh, really?
Amy Stewart. I
Ah.
believe. Yeah, I believe Bob.
Okay.
Must have either been the dad. Oh, I think it was the dad of her or grandpa, but I think it's her dad, Bob.
Okay.
Lived not down the hill from us, not too far from us.
Well, Paul Detmer appears to be missing, perhaps, so hopefully everything turns out okay with him. But Bob just seems to be, in England, as he's learned. So, and yeah, we still don't know who Mert is, but apparently Mert knows someone on a submarine, maybe? I don't know. So he talks about that. And I'm very sad to hear about Wings.
Oh, he's all right. He's doing okay.
Living his best life. He, she, whatever the cat is. We don't know his gender. Her gender.
He says he.
He says he, but, But yeah.
He should be on either life 9 or 8 or 9 by now.
I would think, yeah.
20,
So, all right, go off, Wings. Have a good time. Well, it's now time for our segment where we reveal information we know about Bruce's flight missions. And for this information, we have to consult flight records and mission diaries from the historical website of the 306th Bomb Group and all of its squadrons. And their website told us that in early May 1944, Bruce led a mission to Saarbrücken, I hope I'm saying that right, which was fairly uneventful, I think. But we aren't going to talk about Saarbrücken today, if that's how you say it. Instead, we are going to read Bruce's account of a hypothetical mission that was published in the Ledger. So this is that letter he was referring to that he sent to Harold Jeffries, in there. And I'm pretty sure this isn't a real mission, but it could be inspired by one. But he's trying to let the town know, in general, what happens when he goes on these missions. Yeah. So it's a long letter, and first we're going to read the intro that the Ledger wrote to kind of tee up the letter and introduce it to the town, and then we're going to read Bruce's letter, and we'll kind of break it up here and there. But
sure.
So yeah. So Aunt Lori, why don't you start with the intro?
Sure. A letter from Captain Bruce McMahon, squadron leader with the U.S. Army Command in England, published in a recent issue of the Ledger, created so much interest among our readers that Harold Jeffries of the Ledger staff wrote to Captain Bruce asking him to kindly respond with an encore, and Bruce generously complied with the request with a letter that follows. It is a graphic description of what takes place on a flying fortress on its mission over enemy territory, and we know that every one of our readers will appreciate the letter. Bruce and all the others like him are risking their lives daily for each and every one of us, and our hearts and prayers go with them to victory and a safe return home. Now, in imagination, the Ledger man takes his seat and the flight begins.
What a good intro. I mean, number one. So Harold Jeffries writing a great intro here.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's kick it off. Here we go, in his own words.
Dear Jeff, you asked for another ride, so hop in the navigator's hatch and we'll head out for the continent. Better check that mask again. We don't want you falling asleep at altitude and missing the show. If you feel yourself getting a little happy, just turn on the emergency valve for a couple of good snorts and you'll be okay. 50 below is a long way below freezing, so you'd better check your heated suit and gloves again. That flak suit and helmet there by the escape hatch are yours, so have the set put on when we get over. Just watch Sammy. When he puts his on, that's your cue. We just crossed the French coast. Our formation is in a good position behind us, and there ahead of you is our battlefield. There sure is a lot of it out there. Roughly a 600 miles square, that's about 5 miles deep. Sometimes roughly best describes it. From the Bay of Biscay to the Swiss Alps, from Austria to the fjords of Norway, it's all Hitler's backyard. And we are over today to play drop the hanky with 500-pounders. That's a lot of battle area, and to you it must seem pretty indefinite in boundary. But wait, I'll show you some road signs on our way in. There's one now. Look off our starboard engines at 3 o'clock. See those little black puffs below us? Look like German measles from here, don't they? They're German, all right, but the kind of measles you catch only once. That is what an 88 mm anti-aircraft barrage looks like from a distance. It's coming from France. Over here on my side, you can look out and see another barrage that's breaking at our altitude. There are 105 mm guns, and they're coming from Belgium. Nice of Jerry to furnish us with these markers, don't you think?
Well, we'll take a pause here because I need to know what these MM guns are. So, Dale, can you explain to us what these are?
The 88 millimeter and the 105 millimeter guns were well-known artillery pieces used during World War II by various nations, including Germany and the United States. The 88 millimeter, or the Flak 88, gun was a highly effective German anti-aircraft and anti-tank artillery gun. It was widely used by the Germans throughout the war and became one of the most recognized German weapons. Flak came into English as an abbreviation for the German word, I'm not going to say it.
We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah,
totally.
FLIEGRABWEHRKANONE, meaning aircraft defense gun.
Right.
The gun was known for its accuracy and destructive power when engaging aircraft, particularly bombers. When an 88 millimeter projector exploded, it would create black clouds of debris and jagged metal fragments that tore through aircraft or caused devastating damage to ground targets. The standard gun fired a 17-pound shrapnel grenade that could climb thousands of feet into the air and then burst into 1,500 or more shards that could destroy or damage any plane within 200 yards.
Wow.
Between 15 to 20 rounds could be fired per minute with a 10-man crew. The anti-aircraft shells had two types of fuses. Those were barometric fuses set to specific altitudes and those with time-delayed fuses. No matter what triggered them, the jagged steel fragments could easily decapitate or dismember one or more members of a flight crew.
Ew.
The results of such an attack could be devastating even for those who survived the battering. Many became afflicted with the clanks. We talked about this last week. A paralyzing sense of dread and became known as dying men flying. Remember we talked about
Like dead men walking.
we talked about that last week. In the first half of 1944, casualty rates for every 1,000 bomber crew members serving 6 months in combat included 712 killed or missing and 175 wounded for 89%. Barely 1 in 4 U.S. airmen completed 25 missions over Germany, and that minimum quota was raised to 30 missions, then 35 after the liberation of France and Belgium. The 88 millimeter gun was also effective against tanks, capable of penetrating the armor of most Allied tanks. The Flak 88 also was used in different configurations, including self-propelled gun mounts, tank mounts, and as used of an anti-aircraft batteries. The 88 millimeter gun was the most famous artillery piece of the Second World War. Its reputation for accuracy, destructive power, and widespread use made it one of the most feared weaponry of Allied forces, influencing the course of battles.
Yeah, so it was the gun that shot all the flak and
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
Okay.
All the little black puffs of smoke that you see in some of those was the 88 millimeter.
Huh.
Now, the 105 millimeter gun, 105 howitzer, was an important weapon in the war due to its versatility, effectiveness, and widespread use. It served as a standard light field howitzer, providing a motor-drawn artillery for both indirect fire support and anti-personnel capabilities, and was used for numerous nations. Now, I asked myself, what's a howitzer? A howitzer is a short gun for firing shells on high trajectories at low velocities. The name howitzer originates from a Czech word, houfnis, referring to a catapult that could fire many stones.
Oh, wow.
The term houfnis, I guess how you say it, was used to describe a type of short-barreled cannon used in the Hussite War of the early 15th century. So it was a short gun, length gun, and could be easily moved. That famous one was the M101, a US 105 howitzer, had a range of 11,270 meters or 7 miles it could shoot, making it suitable for supporting infantry. A high explosive, they said HE shell, I'm going, what's that mean? It means high explosive. Duh, I guess. High explosive, HE, was used and designed to explode upon impact, delivering a large amount of damage and energy to its targets.
Yikes.
So there you have the 88
Okay.
and the 105.
Yeah. So you can see the little
Jeez
black puffs of
Louise.
smoke.
Dangerous
out there.
weapons.
Yeah. Well, we need to keep going with this amazing novelization, really, of this mission, in his own words.
Of course, Jerry isn't always so accommodating. Sometimes he plays possum, Apologies to our furry friend. With the hope that you'll unwittingly fly directly over his range area and then he'll open up the works at you. But usually he sticks to his delusion, that is, his impressive scrap iron barrages that may turn us away from the target. I'll grant he has a point there, but he just doesn't understand good old American logic. The brief target is located at, is it 00N? Or 00N by 00E? And if that hunk of sky is full of flak, that's tough, brother. But it says in our log that this is where we're supposed to unload these doodads from Doolittle, and by damn, that's where we're going.
Wow.
The Supermen should have learned long ago that nothing will turn these decadent democratic sons from their target. Ach too, Adolf. There's plenty more where those came from. We're about 35 minutes from the target now, and you can hear the navigator and bombardier comparing pilotage points over the intercom. You'll notice they're using rivers and large autobahn, like roads, to direct our courses with the cities as pinpoints. Although neither of them has ever been down there, they know those roads better than you know North Hudson Street. They've spent many hours of work in the briefing rooms back at the base studying each little hill and gully of the terrain below. Teddy Boswell, my bombardier, gets lost going from Russell Square to Piccadilly, but take him over a continent and he can find his way around blindfolded. They have identified the target area now and are using the woods below as a checkpoint. They are following that railroad that runs through the woods, and it will lead them directly to the target.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
We have pictures of Ted Boswell. It appears he was one of Bruce's maybe closer friends since they took pictures together a lot. So he is in Bruce's scrapbook quite a bit and in different photos. He is one of the guys. There's a photo of them all on top of the B-17 that accompanies our YouTube, and he's one of the guys up there. So Teddy's about to get them to this hypothetical target. So let's keep going in his own words.
There, Teddy just spotted our MPI, main point of impact, in his binoculars, and we'll soon start our run in. That flak is really getting close now. Do you have that armor on? Boy, we caught a lot of that last burst. Are you okay down there? Nice invention, those flak suits, eh? Those gunners down there must have taken postgraduate work. We're on our run now. It won't be long. Bombardier to radio. Cameras on. Roger. Bombs away. Radio to bombardier. Bomb bays empty. Doors closing. Roger. We've played around in this flak about long enough. I'm starting to turn out of this stuff. Take a look around behind us and see all the smoke coming from the target, Jeff. There's no mistaking the hit when you see smoke like that. We should have some nice, pretty pictures of our S-2 when we get them developed. Our whole group was releasing on Teddy's bombs, so you can imagine what that factory looks like. They'll be picking up the pieces for the next 10 years. Fighters, high at 2 o'clock, coming around to 3. Okay, Dunton, give them a couple of squirts of that top turret. You're going to see some fighter action now, Jeff. There's about 30 of them in a queue behind us. They'll be making a pass in a couple of minutes. Maybe I spoke too soon. See those contrails up at 11 o'clock? Those look like thunderbolts, and they're headed this way. They're ours, all right, aren't they pretty? Vago draws some pretty fancy pictures, but they don't compare to a B-47 at a time like this. Look at that one coming in. See what I mean about pretty? That's one FW-190 that won't be back up tomorrow.
Yeah, and we know the FW-190 are German planes.
Yep.
I want to say Dunton is Bruce's engineer, I think, or something. So Dunton also gets a couple of pictures in Bruce's scrapbook. So I would recognize some of these names from the captions. But I want to know about our plane, the pretty one, the Thunderbolt. Dale, what can you tell us about the Thunderbolt?
Well,
other than it's pretty.
The Thunderbolt had a great nickname, and you'll find out here in a minute.
Other than Thunderbolt?
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool name.
And because of its shape. I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
Because of its shape. The P-47 Thunderbolt was a powerful and heavily armored World War II air-fire aircraft known for its robust design and versatility. It served as both a high-altitude escort fighter and a fighter-bomber, particularly effective in ground attacks on enemy positions, vehicles, and airfields. It was well regarded for its exceptional driving ability, considered critical by ace pilots, and how it transformed the energy and climbing power to get back into the fight. The P-47 was the best escort fighter available for the 8th Air Force when they began their strategic bombing offense against Nazi Germany. From the spring of 1943 The P-47 Thunderbolts protected bomber fleets and inflicted heavy losses against the Luftwaffe. Pilot Kinney says, as an escort plane for bombers, it more than held its own against the best Luftwaffe, and despite its range limitations. With 8 50 caliber machine guns and the capability of carrying rockets and 2,500 pounds of bombs, the P-47 was a dangerous aircraft against ground targets. Now, it talked about its range of limitations. The aircraft was the brainchild of Alexander Kartveli and made its first flight on May 6, 1941. It was powered by a powerful Pratt & Whitney R2800 radial engine known for its reliability and power, and featured turbo supercharger, which allowed it to maintain high performances at high altitudes of up to 40,000 feet. The aircraft's range was, however, limited by its fuel consumption. The drop tanks were used for long missions, so that was one of the downfalls there. It couldn't go on long missions, so they had the drop tanks underneath that looked like bombs, and they drop off for extra, so they could go extra miles. During World War II, the Thunderbolt flew more than 500,000 missions and dropped 132,000 tons of bombs. It had an exceptionally low rate of loss, 0.07 per mission, while Thunderbolt pilots racked up impressive 4.6 to 1 aerial kill ratios. Of the 15,683 P-47s built between 1941 and 1945, only 3,499 were lost in combat.
Oh, that's good.
The P-47 Thunderbolt was named Jug
Okay.
because its shape resembled a large jug. And some sources suggest it was also a reference to Juggernaut, highlighting its ability to absorb damage and keep fighting. This nickname was popularized by the British pilots during World War II. In the European theater, P-47 pilots were responsible for destroying more than 7,000 enemy aircraft, more than half in air-to-air combat. And when I researched this, the first thing that it said, and I'll finish with it, the P-47 Thunderbolt, durable and deadly.
Ooh, all right. I wonder if Bruce was happy to see them.
Yeah.
As they're
That was
back from
one
this
nice thing
hypothetical
about
mission.
That was one nice thing about it. It could take hits and keep going. It was just
All right.
it was just a solid, tough plane.
Okay.
But it was
pretty
fat
sight.
looking.
A pretty sight
it
for
was,
Daddy.
it was,
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Big
yeah,
reason we're still
I'm
over
sure-
here, Laurie.
I'm sure Bruce felt very comfortable when those were flying along beside him, going into
Sure.
Okay.
wherever.
Well, that's great. All right. Well, let's finish this letter in his own words.
Pilot to tail gunner, how's the formation? Okay, keep an eye on them, Riggs. We've come out on top this time, Jeff. We have 2 stragglers with props feathered, but the rest of our formation is intact. We'll keep track of those 2 ships on 3 engines, and I'll slow down, or S, if they fall too far behind. According to my figures, we have about 2 hours to go before we're over the channel and comparatively safe. We'll give you the exact ETA. Dunton is coming down with some stuffing for those flak holes. That nose is cold enough even without flak ventilation. It must be darn frosty right now. As soon as we get back to below oxygen altitude, you can come up here or go back in the radio room and to get thawed out. In the radio room, the fellows will whip you up a hot cup of coffee with a sandwich. Okay? Pilot to crew, any Purple Hearts on board? Okay. Keep those turrets swinging and watch into the sun. That ETA is about up, Jeff, and up there ahead you can see the English coast and the barrage of balloons of Ipswich. This about completes your first trip, so I'll bow out now and hope you enjoyed it. I'll admit it is rugged entertainment, but what do you want to do? Make Sherman a liar? So long, and the best to you, your friend, Bruce.
I don't know what Sherman is, but but yeah, what a letter. This is cool.
Oh, I know it. Yeah.
I mean, it is really like a novel. It
Yeah.
reads like a novel. and
Fantastic.
I'm sure people really wanted to read it back in Lowell.
Oh, yeah.
So, front page. It's the front page
Oh.
in May, middle of May, 1944. Or, yeah, I think so. Well, and we want to end on same thing we did last week with our rebus puzzle here. So, if you remember, in our last episode, we posed a letter from Byrne to Bruce, or we talked about it, that was written as a rebus. So, it's mostly pictures that Byrne drew to Bruce. We have been working on trying to read the letter, and for a long time, we've been working on this now, and we have opened it up to the listeners to help us. So feel free, keep those comments coming, keep trying to help us out. We thought we would give an update to make sense of what we have found so far. Okay, so you can see the rebus on the Lowell Historical Museum website, on our YouTube video, on our Instagram. It'll be there. So the letter so far we have, dear something something. That part we don't have.
That's the part we don't have.
That's the part we don't have. How are you feeling? I'll bet the brass, we think it's brass.
Yep.
We don't know. Can't read my note to you. We don't know that, but that's too bad. Be seeing you presently. Drop me a letter, and then burn. So we need help with the somethings.
I fear
Especially
we
that
may
beginning
never
of the
know.
letter.
We may never know the salutation there. We may just.
Yeah, because it's deer, and then it looks like a picture of like a well or, of course, a reservoir. It looks like Reservoir Hill, but why? I don't know why he would say that.
Well, yeah.
Why we would say Reservoir Hill. But it looks like a pump or a well. And then there's like pictures of books in like a bookshelf that's tipped over. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a one bookend.
Yeah.
Right? That's one.
One bookend. So, dear, we're thinking it might be some sort of nickname for Bruce that we've never known before. That, maybe his older brother, they call him Barney, maybe. So maybe Bruce has a similar name we're just not aware of. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
This the brass. Well, no, not the brass. The 2U is also a very weird looking symbol. It looks like it could have just been the number 2 and the letter U, but smushed together. We spent a very long time Googling what that symbol could be before we
I think
thought
it's just
this
2U.
must be a 2 and a U together.
That makes more sense. That makes sense in the note.
It makes sense in
My
the
note to you. Yeah.
But these pictures are very well drawn. It's quite funny. Like Bern and Bruce are both like good at sketching things out, like sketching these little cartoon things, and they're very good at that.
How do you feel with those legs?
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, feeling. How are you feeling is for. I know this is a.
And the guy holding his nose over, over an egg, a rotten egg, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The audio. The feeling is someone rubbing some legs, which is, I think that's feeling.
How are you feeling?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I thought it was shin. I thought there was something with a shin.
I'm gonna need help.
I gotta give credit to you, Dad. I think you're the one that's been the most dedicated.
He has
to
been.
figuring this out. But
Absolutely.
And
periodically,
I'm gonna come up short unless
periodically,
unless
Aunt
Gail
Lori
can come through.
Aunt Lori came up with the can't, which that was struggling for a long time.
Yeah.
I found the my.
Oh, you
which
got
is like
you got the read. That was,
and
that
read.
Was, that was
reads,
Yep.
reads, yeah.
Yep. So we've all kind of contributed to pieces of this letter, but we are still struggling with the salutation.
Dale just keeps laughing at us.
Drop me a letter. Drop me a letter.
Drop me a letter is a person dropping a letter.
Oops.
Yep. This is oops. It's great. Like these pictures are great. So take a look at it. Let us know if you can help us out with this salutation somehow, and we might never find out. We might never figure that out.
I think the book on the right, I think has the title Ordinances, and then the book on the left, STAPO or what? It's a reference to Gestapo.
Maybe, yeah.
It could be. There's one of them.
It's so weird.
I think we should give away a prize.
Jeez, Dale.
How
What are you
about
committing?
how about
What are you giving away?
I'll make some fudge. I won't make divinity, but I'll make some fudge.
we need to give away some divinity.
I don't know. We'll see. I'll buy.
A box of divinity.
and
or
some
a-
maple sugar.
Dad was embarrassed. He didn't
And
recognize his own mother's divinity.
divinity and maple sugar in memory of Bruce.
Yeah.
I'll
Don't say
tell
it
you,
was Helen's
it's
divinity.
not an easy thing to make.
No.
I've tried.
Well,
No,
we can
I can make chocolate fudge. I can't make divinity, which is white.
We'll buy some and say we
Okay.
made it.
I looked up how to make divinity because I was like, oh, I'll try to make this, and I was like, nope, it
No,
sounds
it's-
way too complicated.
Yeah,
Even
it is.
reading the recipe, I
It
was
was.
like, nah, I'm gonna
It
pass.
is. It is.
So I didn't even try. So good for you for trying, Aunt Lori.
No.
Well, yeah. So listeners, chime in. We'll just see what happens at
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for listening to Letters Home. We hope you continue to listen as we go through Bruce's story. You can listen to Letters Home on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the Lowell Historical Museum website and YouTube channel. New episodes drop every Thursday. The Lowell Historical Museum has digitized versions of Bruce's letters so you can read them in full, pictures included, along with primary sources for most of the people, places, and events we've talked about here today, plus more. You can also follow the Lowell Historical Museum on Facebook and the Letters Home podcast on Instagram at Letters Home Lowell. Thank you to Roger McNaughton for our podcast music and to Lowell Radio for letting us record in their studio at Lowell High School every week. Stream it at lowellradio.org. See you next time.